Have you ever had that feeling that something was watching you? Have you ever seen something that you just couldn't explain? Tonight, we'll take you inside some of Calgary's most mysterious buildings. Our first location is the Cat and Fiddle Pub, where many Calgarians go to enjoy a nice cold beer. However, many don't realize that this pub was once a funeral home, and staff will tell you that the embalming room isn't the only creepy thing left behind.
The building was built about 62 years ago, and it was a funeral home, of course, and it was taken over in 1993 as the Cat and Fiddle Pub, and it's since been around for 15 years as a pub. The ceiling is absolutely original. The ceiling is beautiful. It's 3.5-inch thick cedar. The only thing that's really changed is maybe this raised area.
You could talk to every person that works here and everyone has an experience, at least one. Weird things go wrong in this place all the time, electrically, that are impossible to go wrong. Our staff, like I said, if things are going wrong, they'll start talking to the ghosts. They'll say, come on, be nice, like, help us out here, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, the thing will work.
They used to work on the bodies downstairs, obviously, and there was a tragic motorcycle accident, and the body was brought into this funeral home. We decided to sit over here at a table at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was absolutely amazing. You could hear this. It was 30 degrees outside, minus 30, I should say, and you could hear this motorbike as if it was going up 16th Avenue. Of course, it wasn't in the middle of winter, and that's been heard repeatedly ever since.
We were in here one night after closing, and we were playing the golf machine. And we got our money in there, we're playing away, right? And all of a sudden we start hearing these, like, shouting, like, but it's mumbling, right? And you can hear a man and a woman, definitely a man and a woman. And they're getting louder and louder and louder, and we're getting more and more scared. And all of a sudden, like, they're just, like, battering at each other. You can just hear these people yelling. You cannot hear a thing they're saying, but you know that there's people yelling. And it was coming from this area, the dart room. And we looked over there, and then there was a big bang, and we saw a shadow walk right through the wall, and we ran. We ran so fast, locked those doors, we were done. We were robbed a few months ago, and we have on tape the robber standing here, and he keeps going into the ladies' bathroom. He's hearing something. So he thinks someone's in there, and he keeps going and looking, but there's nobody in there. But this is where the most activity is with the ghosts. So the next day we were watching the tape, and we slowed it down frame by frame, and all of a sudden we could see all these orbs, and they were following him, but really scared him, and he left. He was gone right after that. So they definitely did protect us. I believe there's 2 ghosts. I believe there's a male and a female. And I do know they're friendly. They do like this place. They like the patrons. They like to look after it.
When I really think about it, I don't see why anybody shouldn't believe in ghosts, because we don't really know, do we? You know, and there's so many things go on, and this place is proof of that, it really is.
The Rose and Crown, just outside of Calgary's downtown, is another building that has been repurposed from a funeral home to a pub.
A group of people from Banff and Calgary that owned the Rose and Crown in Banff purchased it and converted it into a pub, and that was in '87. The main bar was the chapel area, as you can tell by the high ceilings in there, and the main entrance was on 4th Street, and we didn't have a patio there then. There's a story about a little boy in a balloon. It was about 4 in the evening, and I was working in the main bar downstairs, and we had just decorated the 2nd level, and we hung all these helium-filled balloons, and with ribbons on them, they were hanging from the ceiling. They made about 10, 20 of them hanging from the ceiling. But essentially, this one balloon came down, went down a corridor behind the main bar, and there was an access to the main bar, and this balloon would come along, and it would go below the doorways, and then it came into the main bar, then went back up, and then it went down towards the kitchen. So I thought that was kind of crazy, so I I got the same balloon and I put it back up in where it was. And the same balloon came down 3 times and did the exact same thing. With all the different balloons there, just one balloon did it. No one knows for sure what the origin of the boring the balloon is. Well, this funeral home was here, 20, 30 years, so a lot of people have passed through here.
Tom Davis is the executive director of CAPI, Calgary Association of Paranormal Investigation. Tom and his crew of volunteers visit various locations to investigate suspected paranormal activity.
Rose and Crown. That was an interesting series of investigations. Main floor, kind of interesting little alcoves. Okay, that's fine. Second floor, started to get a little more interesting, at least with our feelings, with our perceptions. The attic blew everyone away. There was so much activity in the attic, which was used by the people who owned the funeral home initially as their sleeping quarters. We were actually able to find what was best described as a little boy sitting in a corner of a room in the attic, that the little boy seemed to be very sad. Something had happened to this little boy. We feel that it was something that happened during the time that the original family was there. We researched as much as we could. We could not determine what it might have been. So it's a mystery.
I believe in it for sure. I'm not scared of them. I think it's intriguing, but it don't scare me. I think it's kind of fun to have them around.
Calgary is home to Canada's largest living historical village, Heritage Park. The stories behind each building will be told for many years to come through this living museum, but the question is, by whom? The staff or its residents that just won't leave?
Canmore Opera House, it was built in Canmore, and it was actually built originally to house the band, the coal mining band up there. It actually went through many incarnations in Canmore. Everything from whist tournaments to socials to dances to Christmas pageants happened in this building. In the most recent renovation, it was 1922, electricity was fed into the building, which enabled it to become a movie house. It then operated as a movie house right up until the 60s in Canmore. It wasn't used nearly as much as a theater. So in 2000, the decision was made by Heritage Park to renovate it into a function area. Supposedly, the Canmore Opera House is home to 3 ghosts. Probably our best known would be a fella, basically who used to own the land that we are standing on, Sam Livingston. All of Heritage Park is Sam Livingston's pasture land. Now, when Alberta Theatre Projects was stealing residents here, many of the people, many of the apprentices and the actors reported the usual ghostly hijinks, props missing. You thought you'd put it on this table, it turns up on that table. Very strange things. And there was a very notable sighting of our ghost Sam, who used to sit in the seats. He was actually 3rd seat from the left, 3rd row. A lot of people do believe it's our man Sam Livingston, just stopping in to see what plays are going on his pasture land. Well, the second one, she is heard. She's not seen, but she is heard quite often. This building has played host to actually definitely some of the divas of Europe of the 19th century. It would seem that one of those divas never did decide to actually go home. The sound of a woman's operatic voice singing throughout the building has been heard by people walking past and by people who are in the building. The final ghost, he's a little enigmatic. Nobody's too sure who he is. Sometime during the turn of the century, there was a mine accident in Canmore. And because the Canmore Opera House was the largest building in the community, it was used as a triage center and the morgue. We do know that about 7 or 8 of the miners were killed. Some of them actually did die in the building. So a lot of people think this might be the ghost of one of the miners who was killed in that accident.
Notably, one of the city's most ambitious entrepreneurs was responsible for Calgary's first streetlights, which led to the creation of the Calgary Water and Power Company.
Peter Prince was born in Quebec, and then he moved to Ontario for a short time with his family. From there, he moved to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and was working as a millwright for a lumber company there. The owner of that lumber company had heard that we have lots of timber here and asked Peter Prince to come to Calgary along with some men and equipment and start up the Eau Claire Bow River Lumber Company. It was located down by the Eau Claire market area today, and Prince's Island, which he actually made, was named after him. After he was here for 8 years and he was very successful, he ended up building the house that we're in today in 1894. He was married to Marguerite to begin with, and he and Marguerite had 2 children. And Marguerite actually passed away 4 years after he built this house. She died from diabetes. However, Peter was 62 years old at that time, and they were married just in their early 20s, so he spent the bulk of his life with Marguerite. After she passed away, he married again to Emma, and unfortunately, Emma died 4 years later from tuberculosis. Then he married Rosa, and she died 5 years later from cancer. And his 4th wife, Emily, outlived him by 19 years. There's many stories about this house being haunted. A lady and her 2 children came in, and we were standing at the bottom of the stairs, and she asked me if I personally had had any strange or unusual experiences here. And I said no, that I hadn't. Just then a couple were walking up the stairs, and the lady turned around and she said, "Well, I have." She told us that the summer before that, she and her husband were here, and they had gone upstairs and they were looking in the window of the bedroom just at the top of the stairs. And there was a lady in there dressed in a long dress with a corn broom, one of the old brooms, and she had her back to them, and she was just sweeping away, and she was watching her, and then she said to her husband, "Do you see that lady in there?" And the husband said, "Yes, I do." So she said she started rapping on the glass, trying to get her attention, and the lady just kept on sweeping and ignored them. So they decided to come back downstairs and talk to the lady that was working here that day. And when they got down here, they asked the lady if by chance housekeeping was in the building doing some cleaning. And she said, no, there's just the 3 of us here. And they said, "Oh, no, there's a lady upstairs sweeping." And she assured them that no, there was just the 3 of them. So they said, "Well, why don't you come upstairs and we'll show you that there's a lady up there sweeping." So the 3 of them went upstairs and she was gone. And they said they have come back many times hoping to see her again, but they never have. Well, all the stories that I've heard indicate that there is definitely a lady. As to who the lady is supposed to be, no one seems to know. There's lots of people guessing that perhaps it's one of Peter Prince's wives, but nobody really knows.
Stay tuned for more Paranormal Past. After the break, we'll explore a building where a tragic murder-suicide occurred.